Hello. Today my guest is Siobhan Minty, and Siobhan has written a couple of things that I'm going to let her tell you about in a few moments. At the moment, I'd like to just say welcome, Siobhan.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And this is a really tough question right off the bat, but I just want to know something really wild and crazy about you.
Wild and crazy. Let's see. Well, that's a hard question actually, because I know there's something wild and crazy about me. I have a really good sense of humor that's pretty wild and crazy, and if you get me going, I can do lots of dares and just...
Ooh, tell us about a dare you might have done.
Let me see, let me think.
Somebody dared you to have kids and you did, right?
Well, maybe, I can't think of a specific time, but I mean, if somebody dares me to go up and talk to some random person, I can. Or, for example, I can act, I can be like, somebody says, okay, go up to this person and pretend you're British, and have a British accent and make up this entire world.
Yeah.
I've done dares like that, where I've just gone up to a total stranger and...
But I don't think that would be too difficult for you because you're a writer, and so you're used to kind of living in that imaginary world.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
It's fun though.
Well, that leads me to my next question. What is your background and how much of it includes writing?
Well, actually, my mother tells me that since I was 4 or 5, I used to write little skits. I mean, these were little, I couldn't really write really well, but just like little skits that I performed for them, I'd write. Yeah. So the writing and even acting, they went hand in hand. For a while, I was really into acting throughout high school, and that was my big goal, to be an actress. But the writing was always kind of like the underlying script writing.
Yeah.
And then finally, when I got to university, I got a degree in creative writing, and that just kind of catapulted me from there. Creating different worlds, things like that really intrigued me. And yeah, that's what I did, and I started a writers group, and here I am today.
Yeah,
I really love the writing. Yeah,
that's good. Can you tell me about your current writing project? I think you've got a novel and a young adult novel. Can you tell me about those?
Right. So I recently self-published a novel onto ebooks entitled "A Gay in the Life of Melinda Finch." It's downloadable on most ebooks, and this was a project I started when I was 25. It was my first novel.
I was intrigued by the title of that, "A Gay in the Life of Melinda Finch." It just seemed to work really well to me to have that play on a day in the life of. And can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's basically about, I guess, a young woman in her 30s. She has lots of love issues, love problems. She's quirky and funny. It's a humorous novel, and she ends up writing for a lesbian gay advice column, though she's not a lesbian, and she sort of has to go undercover as a lesbian to gather research on how to actually do this.
Interesting. So did you have to go undercover? Somebody who has 2 children and is happily married?
Well, I wrote this before I was married. I started writing this before I was married, and the whole novel came out of the fact that I was kind of pining away one day. Oh, you know, with my sister, if we don't get married by X age, we're just going to turn lesbians. That's what we said, and then this is how this book came about. So, I did check out some gay lesbian clubs, but I didn't actually go undercover.
Good for you. And tell us about your young adult novel.
Yeah, the young adult novel is what I'm working on right now. It's entitled Kiss, and this is more sort of where I'm at this stage, and it's more paranormal romance. And basically, the main premise is a girl who can't kiss anyone because she kills them. And I'll leave it at that.
Oh, yes, and you don't want to give too much away. No. We'll be watching for that one. Is writing hard or easy for you?
It depends. I would say good writing is hard. It doesn't come easy. And even brainstorming sometimes doesn't come easy. But like when I'm in the flow, it you know, I can write, but whether it's good or not, usually that's the editing process.
Yeah. What have you learned from other writers?
I learned to persevere and just keep writing. You know,
I know you're in that. Sorry, I know you're in that critique group, and so can you tell us how that has impacted your writing?
Yeah, I guess being with other writers and them working on other projects, it kind of gives me inspiration because we're throwing ideas back at each other. We're sort of supporting each other. So when you get discouraged sometimes and you think, oh, you know, it's too hard or whatever, you know, you have others to support you, and it's just a learning process. It's a continuous learning curve, and that's what I really love about writing, is it's constantly challenging, constantly pushing you to that next level to be better if you're serious about it.
I was wondering how you deal with sensitive topics, and of course we had the gay thing there and so on, and in my own writing, historical fiction, I had the question of, do I use the word Indian, which to talk about Native peoples, and that was the term that was currently being used in the time period that I'm writing about, or do I use the more politically correct term Native? Do you run into that sort of thing with your writing?
Sometimes, but I think it's about the integrity of the piece and your character. I've had this conversation with various people before, and I think, you know, what's believable to your character, what the character would use, especially for historical fiction.
Well, that's what I came to think too.
It takes me out of the belief. It doesn't suspend my belief if I feel like the narrator's kind of inserted something in there just to kind of be politically correct. I'd like to come to that conclusion for myself when I read.
Yeah, that's kind of... Actually, I went through, and you know how you can use search and replace, and I went through and I replaced all the times that I had used Indian, and I put in Native, and then I was doing one of my rewrites, and I thought, this just doesn't ring true at all, because that's not what they used at the time. What's your writing regimen? Do you have a writing regimen, or when do you write?
I have 2 young children. One's just 6 months old. And at first I thought, how am I ever going to write with babies? I've been trying to do a regimen where I try to do 500 words a day. I try my best. It doesn't always work out that way. But usually when the babies are taking a nap, I'll write. I'll try to do that writing when it's quiet, because it's kind of hard to do it when you have screaming children. And I try my best to stay disciplined and do it, but it's hard.
Yeah. Well, good for you. And do your friends understand your commitment to your writing?
For the most part, my friends and family, they support me with writing, but I still don't think, at times, I think it's a serious career, because I'm not making any money off of it right now. So it's like, oh, she can be interrupted, it's okay. But I mean, you know, that's when you have to kind of put the boundaries and say, well...
See, and I don't know, maybe you're the same, but when I'm doing research, or when I'm doing revision or editing or that sort of thing, I don't mind being interrupted. But when I'm actually sitting there writing, I just say, no, I'm not answering the phone, and my husband doesn't come in the room. And
good for you.
Yeah, it depends what I'm doing. Certain things I don't mind at all if somebody interrupts me, but other things, like when you're getting into the character.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you stop, well, when I stop anyway, I find it takes me like 10 or 20 minutes to get back into where I was before.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody would agree with that. Well, this is an interesting question to me, because writers always have these goals in mind, and I want to know, what is the best goal that you can see yourself accomplishing, and what's the least that you can see happening with your writing?
Well, let's start with the least. With the least, I think it just all boils down to me, and just giving up and not completing a project, or just saying, you know, whatever, just letting it fall. I think that's the least accomplishment. I could have a whole bunch of unfinished projects.
And would you be happy with that?
No, I
No.
wouldn't. I wouldn't, because I like to start something and finish it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
just for myself. I guess like any other writer, you know, the best thing you could think of is publication. But even though now with ebooks, I really like electronic media for publishing, because it's opening up a different, you know, opportunities for new writers to sort of put their stuff out there, for example.
Was that a hard decision to make, to e-publish?
It was, you know, and I wouldn't just e-publish anything, but this time I'm like, you know what, I wanted to try it, and I did, and I posted a week ago, so, I mean...
And what has happened since you posted it?
Well, I've had some hits. I've had some people downloading samples. The book has sold some copies, and I guess it's just about promoting the book and promotion. But of course, you know, getting a publisher, finding an agent, that would be, I think most writers would want that, to see their book on the bookshelves represented.
Yeah, and of course that's the big question in publishing these days is, are these bookstores even going to survive?
Yeah,
you know, so you're breaking ground there. That's very interesting. I think that's all the questions that I have, and I really want to thank you for taking the time to do this video with me, and I wish you well in your writing, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Elaine, for having me, and best of luck with your writing project as well.
Oh, thanks so much, Siobhan.